T minus 30 seconds. T minus 20 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Kush's Corner here on the Trap Talk Reptile Network. And today I am very, very excited for this episode. I have the pleasure of being joined by Todd Goodman of Timberline. I have to imagine everybody who is listening is aware of Timberline. If you've been to a PetSmart anywhere in the US, you are aware of Timberline. But definitely one of the most successful businesses in the history of our industry, one that I've looked up to for a long time. So I'm very excited to get to talk to Todd about his journey and his company. But before we get into that, of course, as always, USARC. So USARC is the organization that is fighting for our rights to keep our reptiles, to run our reptile businesses, and to live this lifestyle. Check out usarc.org for everything you need to know about the organization. That website is also where you can find alerts as to new pieces of legislation introduced either at the national level or local levels, as well as updates on any pieces of legislation. USARC.org is also where you can become a member of the organization. As a community, we have strength in numbers, and the more people that are behind the cause, the better. And here we are. Thank you to everybody who is tuned in here. If you are on YouTube and you're not already, please subscribe to the channel. New podcasts every single day of the week from some of the best hosts in the industry, talking about a wide variety of reptile-related topics. But if you're more of a podcast fan, we are on all the major platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google. Wherever you get your podcast from, you can find us at the Trap Talk Reptile Network. And I'm kind of rushing through this intro because I want to get right into it. I'm going to bring Todd onto the show. Hey, Todd, how's it going? Thank you very much for being here with me today.
I'm good, Stephen. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well. So,
Very well.
Yeah, I guess to get us started, I want to hear about kind of your origin story, what brought you to the point of starting Timberline, kind of what the inspiration was. But what was your early life like? What was Todd like as a child?
I grew up in the country. We're in Southern Illinois, so we're very near the Shawnee National Forest and all that stuff. So I was a working kid. So my family started this business in 1972. It was a bait. It started out as a pay fishing lake, then it was a bait supply company. So I would count worms like when I was 10 years old. I would count a dozen in a container. So that's kind of how I grew up. I grew up outside of town, so very much in a farm perspective. So that's how Timberline got started. That's how I got started working. Did my years growing up doing that. I was a busboy in a steakhouse, and I kind of sold clothes for a while. So I kind of learned early. I mean, I've worked essentially all my life. So my story goes like this. When I graduated high school, my dad had been a barber for 13 years when he started this company. He was an outdoorsman, so I grew up hunting and fishing and doing all that with my dad. But he didn't like being confined indoors all day. So he started this other company. So fast forward to when I got started. I went to college right out of high school, went to Eastern Illinois, got my degree in marketing. Basically, I was there to get a good understanding of business itself because I never really had any doubt that I was going to come home. Because, I don't know, I was never an adventurer, so it never really occurred to me to leave. So at the end of the day, that's what I did. Then I came home and got involved in the family business. It was a very seasonal business because we were 100% in the bait fishing business.
Got it.
So it was very seasonal and very regional. And what we did with our off time is we had a hunting club, and then we cleaned geese, and we were we did a lot of things that in the summer you don't do, because in the summer, you know, in summer and winter were so different. That's essentially, so I drove a bait truck,
Okay.
driving routes. I did that for years. That's kind of a great explanation of how we went from being a distributor, because so for instance, I would load my truck at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would many times I would go by the post office and pick up the crickets that I was going to deliver on my bait route.
Okay.
Many times they would not come in on time, so I literally would run my route, charge for them, come home, get them, and go right back on my route again to deliver what hadn't come in. So to have greater control of that, we sold our hunting club and used that to start our first cricket production building.
Okay.
So, and that really still wasn't about the pet industry. That was really about having control of our own supply, at least of the crickets, because minnows always came out of Arkansas, because that's, you know, we don't, you poke a hole in the ground down there and water comes out. So they do a lot of fish farming there.
Okay.
So that kind of brings us to where we became a producer. Then I knew from my bait route, because I would stop by a pet store and I would drop off feeder goldfish and I would drop off crickets. I knew there was a connection, but I did not understand the connection until I went to my first pet industry show in Chicago. Not a reptile show, a pet industry show. And it was there, it was like an epiphany. I have likened it to I have friends that go hog and catfish down in Kentucky. You know how that works. You're sticking your arm under a log
Yeah.
in the mouth of a big fish. But some of those guys that did that told me that there were times they would see a catfish that was bigger than they ever imagined. Like, they're not messing with it. And that was my reaction to the pet industry. I remember walking through Rosemont going, what the heck am I seeing here? And that's what started our move into the pet industry.
Okay.
So that required that we now produce everything. So then we had to start producing crickets and mealworms and waxworms. And that's kind of that's how we landed in the pet industry itself.
Hmm. That's fascinating. I feel like that is essentially the opposite of many stories within, I guess, within the reptile industry of, people find this thing that they're fascinated by. Okay, now how do I make a living doing it? And you're
Right.
like, this market is totally untapped from this thing that I'm already doing. Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, so then before that, aside from just being on your route delivering to pet stores, was that aspect of life even really on your radar?
No, no, you mean the size? No, that's a very common question. Even people that knew my dad, so my dad was involved in this business up until about 27 years ago, I'm thinking. And it may not be that many years, but the point was, we then were having to go, okay, at the time, I would go feed the crickets, water the crickets, harvest the crickets, and then band them up to be shipped out, right, on Airborne Express at the time.
Hmm.
So, no, I don't think I had any sense of how it would grow. However, my attitude was always the same. We were a late entry to this production side of it, because there were farms that have been around for a long time. Because I didn't have this set way that I did business, I basically said to the market, what do you want them to look like? How do you want them? Do you want them, because I can remember as I first got started in this business, I can remember calling my supplier in Southern California where I got giant mealworms.
Okay.
And I can remember calling and saying, hey, I need to get 100,000 worms, whatever. And them tell me, well, we'll ship them out on Thursday. And I'm like, well, I kind of would like them to faster than that. And their answer was, well, we only go to the airport on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Okay. You're literally 6 miles from the airport. What am I missing here? So my point was, it doesn't make them right or wrong. It just meant that my perspective on the way to do business was more customer centric.
Sure.
So you tell me how you want this to be, and we'll do it that way. So that's kind of how we managed to grow like we did, because I basically said, if I've got them, just tell me how you want me to do that. So
Sure. Okay. That makes sense. So then when you kind of took over the family business, what was the approximate scale of it at the time? Was there a staff? Had you been, I remember you saying that you had that first cricket room that you had set up, but was in-house production something that was happening, or was that kind of an idea that you wanted to bring into the fold?
Well, this goes back to my attitude. I was the one who at the time was probably crazy enough to just say yes to, hey, we'd like you to do this, and well, okay, but I'll have to grow to do that. So, um, at that time, we probably okay. So at the time we started producing crickets, we had probably 15 employees.
Okay.
Um, Maybe 3 of them were part-time. The rest were full-time, except we had to find work for them in the winter or we had to lay them off.
Mm.
So now we have about 160 employees, and they're um, I, we only have part-time employees by choice. Like we have some
Mm.
people that only want to work X number of hours a week, and
Okay.
they happen to like a department that can allow that.
Mm.
Because again, you can't allow that occasional involvement in husbandry, but you can, because remember, everything I produce, I also have to package.
Sure.
We have to take the flat boxes and stitch the screens in just to make the shipping boxes. So there's a lot of packaging and preparation for packaging that's always
Mm.
going on. So, but other than that would give you an idea of the scale, I suppose. And
Okay.
at that time, I will tell you, maybe 1%, 2% of our business was pet related.
Sure.
The rest was completely bait. Now, while I still sell into I mean, obviously cricket's cricket. So if you want to go, night crawlers are night crawlers, you want to go what mealworms are mealworms, you want fish, you want to feed them to reptiles, that's up to me. But it's probably exactly the opposite now. We're probably 99%. I'm going to guess it's less than a full percent
Mm.
that's directly bait related. And that's just simply because there is no regionality to what we do, and there's really not a seasonality, because everything we ship goes overnight. So it's not like we're having to work through seasons that much.
Okay. And then was that something that you had kind of picked up on really early on of like, hey, to make this business what you may have envisioned it at the time, let's move towards this consistent stream of income as opposed to the seasonality? Was that something that you got
Of course.
right
Yeah.
away? Yeah.
That was my issue. I knew when I came back from college, I knew I had to be able to engage. The bait industry is it's not as, I don't mean this in a bad way, it's not as professional from a
Okay.
live bait perspective. Obviously
Comparing
lures and
that to
all those things.
reptiles, I can only imagine how rough that is.
Well, I mean,
I'm messing around, but
well, that's a funny thing. Okay. That's one of the reasons I actually love the reptile community, because we're just a bunch of people,
yeah.
and a whole bunch of people that do a lot of different things in their real world. But so are fishermen. A fisherman does what he does, and then he goes and fishes, and so that it, it's not a good old boy network, but that feel of good friends and all, that's exactly how the reptile industry is. So while I did not grow up messing with reptiles, certainly I was around them all the time, but it was not a passion of mine. But on the contrary, I now love them, and we
Mhm.
keep all kinds of them. We have an entire reptile room just because we like reptiles, and our customer service people need to interact with them to understand the people on the other end of the phone too.
Sure thing.
Sure.
Okay. Absolutely. So then, okay, so now you've kind of entered this space through this kind of serendipitous occurrence. Um, what was your early strategy as far as how you wanted to approach the whole pet industry thing? Were you thinking about market share, about kind of specializing in certain products, about being kind of a general store for feeders? What was the kind of first path you took as far as trying to enter this new space?
Okay, from the jump, I knew from being a distributor before that we were going to have to produce what we sell.
Hmm.
Okay, so that's a whole different story because you and I can both we can grow mealworms in our closet in a tub. You know what I mean?
Sure.
That's not hard, but scaling that is a whole different ballgame. It Nothing ever scales one to one. It's just not like that.
Yeah.
At least not in my experience. So market share wasn't really my goal. I'm not that gorilla guy.
Okay.
That just it's just not really how I am. Do I believe that because of the way we were going to do business, we stood a chance to really gain market share? Of course,
Yeah.
because I felt like we did it different. We were going to be producing everything, so we had great control over it. So I knew that I could control the quality. So now I just have to control the experience, and to the experience overall is being able to understand what you're doing, to give you the right things for. Have a conversation with a zoo that says, I've got this specific thing that I need food for. Well, that's how we ended up with 10 sizes of crickets. The largest one's an inch, and we've got 9 more. Well, that seems ridiculous, especially if you're a bait guy, but it's not if you're feeding something very specific, like some of the animals Armin works with.
Sure.
They're crazy tiny. Well, you can't.
Yeah.
I love a donut, but who wants one that big? I don't want a donut that big. And I will tell you early on, one of the things we learned too about eating the right way. And this is completely off the track you're probably going, but one of the things we learned early on, the most common thing you fed crickets was chicken food,
Okay.
chick starter. Yeah, chick starter, basically.
Mm.
But what we determined is that the volume of energy that was spent chewing those hard pieces up was largely equal to the amount of energy that they were going to get from it. Okay.
Wow.
So that again goes back to the way we always viewed it. If we're going to do it right, we got to do it. So that's why we ended up with food that's essentially powder now, because what you don't want to do is make it difficult for them to consume their food. So that attitude on our side is exactly why our attitude to the market was the same. You need food, you need exactly what you want. You just tell me what you want. Tell me what frequency and et cetera.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right. So then when you were first getting into bug production, how did you, I guess, how did you figure it out? What were the kind of road bumps that you came across? I bet that could be a whole podcast on its own, but what was that first process like, getting over the hump to where now you're producing in-house?
Well, I mean, one of the things we found was that copious notes would help us learn as we went.
Right.
I will tell you that anytime you're pushing an insect population, despite the fact that we're growing everything indoors, we completely control their temperature, the humidity, everything. They still know the seasons. All right. I don't, how they know that, I don't know,
Yeah.
but they do, because I'm not really a scientist. But so we've learned things along the way that so one of the reasons we knew early on that we could not go the route, I couldn't go the route that so many other people did. What I meant by that is I was never comfortable with the idea that there was a period of time over an hour long that I didn't know the temperature and humidity were right in those rooms. Okay. So, because we found that to be critically important to the linear growth, that's the key to everything. Again, we're different. So granted, there's linear, you watch a clutch and you watch them grow linearly. You'll see one that maybe not be like the rest,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, you want to see the majority of them to grow linearly. Well, if we can control that here, it's just like being a cattle or hogs or chickens or anything else.
Mhm.
As long as you're giving them linear growth, then it's all predictable.
Right.
because now we're not talking about selling 1,000 crickets, we're talking about millions. So that's a completely different story. So those bumps, it's like everything. You learn the greatest lessons by the ones that cause you pain or the ones that cost you money. And so there were a lot of those. There were a lot of things that we had always heard. Like, for instance, I grew up knowing my grower. He was down in Olive Branch, Mississippi. I grew up knowing exactly how they did what they did. My point was, there were things I had learned that were right. We knew that you could not have a protein food greater than 12% for crickets. Okay, that's not true. All right, the reason is because the next step from a lawn and garden at the time, or a farm and feed store, well, if you got this one, if it wasn't this chicken feed and you wanted more to it, then you got the next batch, which had the medication in it. Okay, so that's why you couldn't use it, because the medication would kill the crickets.
Okay.
It wasn't about it. That's why we started making our own food, is what I'm trying to say. We started our own formulation of food because we knew that we could control greater growth, and they need greater protein. But the old wives' tales that we had heard were not exactly true. They were anecdotally true, but not true. So working through all of those to get production consistent and manageable, it took years.
Sure.
I mean, we made mistakes after mistakes, because at the time, 100% of our production was not spoken for. We were still looking for customers, so we could make those errors. Now we have to intentionally overproduce just in case something haywire happens.
Sure. I mean, hey, not a bad problem to have, but definitely makes sense.
Of course. I mean, yes, we could talk an hour on single topics alone. I can tell you the temperature at which you can sterilize an entire building of crickets.
I bet.
With too much heat.
Yeah.
But you won't know that until weeks later when you try to produce with them. And when no egg hatches, you realize that's a problem.
Yeah.
And that's also why over the years we've changed. Like, we had a fire 15, 17 years ago, and it started in the wall of one of the buildings, but it got to the next one. We had them 15 feet apart, didn't even burn the metal on the other ones, but there was a common raceway at the top where they were all connected, because all the buildings had to be connected. So that not only changed the way that now it's a poured wall where it connects, so you can't actually, that whole building could burn down and the rest of them wouldn't. Not only that, did it change the way we physically did it, it changed the way we handled production. So everything's in thirds now. So you could wipe out, except for the whole farm, you could wipe out a part of it and you would not get every generation, because we'd have eggs, we'd have, it's just, we kind of separated it because we learned the hard way.
Sure.
And there are so many stories like that.
Yeah, I can imagine so. And, that brings a bunch of follow-up questions into mind about the process, but I think I might spare some of the people detailed cricket breeding questions. Stick with more of the big picture. All right. So then, at what point of the evolution of the company did it become clear that manufacturing your own feed would be necessary? And is this kind of congruent timeline-wise with the concept of Vitabugs, or is this a separate issue altogether?
No, the Vitabugs and the ad. It only took me about 2 years to know that the food had to change. Now, I worked with a scientist at Purina, Dr. Sadler, and it took us months of work to get it figured out, but we did. That was a much easier process than Vitabugs.
Sure.
But Vitabugs took 10 years to figure out.
Wow.
But that was separated. Even the start of considering Vitabugs, from the change to the food, was separated by 15 years, probably, at least. I assume.
Wow. Okay.
I'd lose track of time.
Hey,
When
that's
when I need to know how old I am, I usually turn to my wife and ask her how old she is because we're either the same age or 6 months apart. Yeah. So
perfect. Okay. Yeah. Again, just so many questions that I just want to make sure I'm actually getting all the priorities straight. So then I guess I have a lot of kind of questions about scaling and then also how your role changed. Obviously, you started off as a very hands-on role. And whether or not you are now, I'm unaware. I'd have to imagine not quite so much these days. But at what point did it become obvious to you that you would need to have more of an executive type of role in your company for the kind of growth you wanted to achieve?
well, I mean, I, I that's not my mind never went to what will my structure be, right?
Okay.
I again, that's not really how my brain works.
Okay.
My mind was more how is this going to work as far as how who's going to answer the phone if I'm down here doing this? But this is what I tell people that I either consult or whatever from an executive level position. You must reach the point at some point where you realize you can't do it all.
Sure.
Okay. And it was maybe, again, probably 2 years in that I suddenly realized, okay, now it's not about me doing it and getting somebody to help me. I've now got to find people that can do it
Mm,
because I can't be here and here and here and here. And I was fortunate early on. I managed to find some people who were just, they knew nothing about what we did,
yeah.
but they knew how to work and they knew how to be a critical thinker. And so surrounding myself with those people early on was very key. And I've managed to do that for quite some time, very fortunately.
Okay. So then, yeah, early on, what were some of those positions, some of those really critical positions within the company that you decided you had to make or roles you had to fill to kind of start to delegate the full burden from yourself?
Okay, so early on, I did bring in someone to manage the sales side of it.
Okay.
So because again, that's front office, back office type thing. So I knew somebody had to run the front office because again, we still had bait customers coming in all the time, picking up bait, minnows and worms and crickets. Then I needed somebody to be the person who sees the production every day.
Mm,
Okay, so early on it was just crickets. So then when we needed to add, we added red wigglers and then mealworms. Then it became tough for one guy to do all of that.
okay.
So then I had to go find another one who could do this. Then I had to find somebody who could manage waxworm production. And that's a whole other story because the stuff I learned during that whole process about the way waxworms had been grown and harvested, amazing. Um, that's why most people don't do it. These are not easy things to
Mm,
pull off at scale. So
sure.
that's why a lot of people go, well, I'm not going to do those and I'll buy those from over there. But again, it's my attitude has got to be that I've got to be able to control it. And if I can't control it, then I can't put my name on it and say, I guarantee you're going to have good quality. Won't be the cheapest, but I guarantee you'll have good quality.
Yeah.
So those were the early ones. Then as you get more buildings, then you got to have somebody that can be your fix it guy. Because I had trucks on the road, you got to get the trucks working, you got to get the
Mm,
buildings working. And now you see all these years later, you see I have a maintenance department, I have a cricket production manager, a worm, it's completely different.
okay. So then, I remember you saying early on you have a lot of part-time employees. Obviously, when it comes to I mean, at least from my perspective, when it comes to a business like yours, I figure the hardest positions to fill are some of the menial animal care positions, and those are obviously the most critical to the operation moving along. So, how do you go about hiring for those types of positions, and then kind of maintaining employees for a long time in a, maybe I have never done bugs, but can't imagine it's not the cleanest job in the world, but
It's
probably
not.
not the
It's
best
not.
either.
It's not. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I try to make it very clear early on that we're farmers. Okay.
Mhm.
That's why we have so few part-time workers because if you're a farmer, you're always paying attention.
Sure.
So what we've typically found our greatest success is looking for people who I've often referred to them as I want the big belt buckle kids. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I want the farmers. I want we try to partner with FFA clubs because yes, you're our people typically, or even if it were easier, you'd reach out to herp societies, right?
Sure.
Because what you're looking for is people that we're not building something on a conveyor line. We're actually feeding and watering and caring for or preparing food for. So that's a different attitude because now I very much care about what's going on here.
Sure.
And that with the heat or the, whatever, the smells, the dirt, that reduces that pool. So it's always a challenge to try to find people.
Sure. And then,
But I mean, we find it better if they're husbandry inclined. Did you do cattle? Do you do reptiles? Do you do whatever, that kind of thing?
Okay. And then I guess as far as retaining employees go, what are some things that you think you've implemented over the years that makes people stay at your company?
Well, I mean, we do pay pretty well. I mean, I don't think anybody starts under 17, 18 bucks. So
most places, yeah.
But it's not just that. We're, we have an employee clubhouse now where that's where their lockers are. That's where they can do lunch. It's where we do our Christmas stuff. We keep fruit in the refrigerator for them. There's ice to put in their stuff. We have jug fillers. We try to make the experience when they're here better than where it would be somewhere else. And then as far as, our employees are paid well, but we do a reliability bonus. If you just come and work the shifts all week that we ask you to work, you get an extra $50 just for doing what we asked you, and that kind of stuff.
Sure.
It's trying to make the experience, despite the environment sometimes, make it a professional, hardworking experience.
Okay. Sounds pretty good to me. So I guess, and if you have an exact figure or not, but roughly kind of what is your ratio, so to speak, of kind of more managerial top level personnel to, hands on deck, cleaning staff, and, shipping staff?
In this office, which would be all of our executive staff and all that, what are there? There are probably not 10 people in this building. No. I've got me, my controller, my GM is my oldest son, and then I've got Eric who does my he's our brand manager. You've seen him at shows as well. I got 2 up here. I got an HR person and 3 in customer service. Other than that, with the exception of like Ryan, who runs our assurance farm, which is the farm that's physically separate from here, and then some 1, 2, 3, 4 managers out there, 5. The rest of them are basically, we have lead positions and all that, but from the manager perspective, we're not top heavy. Let's put it that way. Because that's the worst. I don't, and everybody that I've got, everybody does different things, right? I mean, not just their job. Like I actually see my people in a department, they might hop in and help out. Everybody's kind of that's kind of how I am. I mean, somebody says, well, that's got to be swept. Well, I got a broom. Here we go. Let's do it. During the whole COVID period, which was amazing, horrible, but great because it really brought us together as a family, as a company. People go by and go, why are you pushing the broom? Well, who's going to do it here? You got so many that are out or whatever. I mean, it's just part of the deal, but I grew up a farm. I mean, it's what I do. You work. I have a real problem with titles too.
Okay.
But what I just do because maybe I own the place, I run the place, but so does everybody else work hard. So we're definitely not corporate America, that's for sure.
No, I feel like, I'm not going to talk about myself much today, but from having run a much smaller scale feeder business, I feel like top heaviness is a really quick way to run into a lot of problems
It's crazy.
in a business that is so reliant on the hands at work every day, keeping the operation flowing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, but that's just us. I mean, that's because
Yeah.
I say we are 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. The factory is running.
Right.
You know, we don't turn it on at 8 a.m. and it's not like that. There's always someone here. There's always
Okay.
someone watching over the place.
Sure. I mean, you kind of have to once you get to that point, you know, even no
Well, that's
choice.
what I'm saying. I know I've got sensors in rooms, but I actually want someone to make certain, because even if the sensor tells me that the temperature's off, somebody still has to intervene. So
Sure.
I would rather people physically be there to make those interventions that are necessary.
Yeah.
Because this idea of, you know, we lost a whole building, that shouldn't happen. I've got 16 generators between the two farms.
Mm.
Absolutely, the power can go out. Yeah, sorry, but I owe it to everybody on the other end of this business to make certain that a power outage isn't what makes a difference.
Sure.
That's just me. I
Yeah.
mean, here's the deal, Stephen. I will tell you that my attitude early on was like this. You and I both know that insects are not. Yes, you can find them, but no, not in a lot of places.
Right.
Like, so if you had a child, and I've got 3 boys, if I had a child and the only place to get baby food was at the baby food store, and I go to the baby food store and they tell me, oh, we're out, but we'll have some in on Thursday. Well, how would that work? Well, I feel the same way because exotic animals use unusual food. And
Right.
yeah, there may be 2 or 3 pet stores or whatever, but it's not on my dime. It's not my cause that they don't have it. Because even when we get 18 inches of snow, we still work our tail off to get every package out of here, even when only 25% of the workforce comes in that day. But that's just that I've always thought what we do is unique, and
Mm.
the users of the food are unique animals that we can't just go, we'll have it to you in a few days. Doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
I've never felt that way about it. I mean, I've always felt that way about it. I just don't.
Sure.
I,
So then,
I know it's a commodity, but it should be different. My
absolutely.
experience should be different.
So then from a kind of morale building, kind of company culture building standpoint, how did you take your mindset and kind of disperse it throughout your company to where obviously, you know, you can, I think, expect every single employee to feel the same way, but I'd have to imagine that many of your staff are take their responsibility seriously because it is just that. What's your process of instilling that kind of attitude into everybody at the farm?
I tell everybody the same thing. If you've got a department of 15 people and you've got 10 you like and 5 that don't believe what you believe, and I always tell them, either you're going to have to explain to them and teach them why you believe the way you believe, or you're going to have to tell me what you're going to ask next to the next person you interview
Hmm.
to make a difference in the next choice.
Yeah.
Part of my motivation to these people and to all of the people in all the different departments has always been I've always viewed this story. Okay, so I know that there are a lot of mothers that go by a pet store sometime today to pick up crickets or worms for Billy,
Hmm.
who she's going to pick up from school. And we both know that the most meaningful time you have with an animal is when you're feeding it, for the most part, because that's the only time you're really interacting. Otherwise, you're holding it, maybe flicking your eyeball, but you get what I'm talking about. So Billy's coming home from school, and this is very important to him. I don't, I want us to make sure Billy has what he needs to complete the experience of his day. So if you're now not picturing what you're doing as feeding a cricket, putting a box or whatever, but you actually view what you're doing as you're packing this stuff up to go to someone very important. That's kind of the attitude I've always tried to get people to understand, that
Hmm.
let's take our job serious to the point that you actually envision the other end of this. That's why our employee clubhouse is full of pictures of reptiles and whatnot.
Hmm.
We want them to understand what it is that they're doing as it relates to what those things on the wall are.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
just always been how, and I tell every manager, because the key is you have to find a manager that believes the same way. And then you have to walk them through the process of getting people to believe like they believe. And it takes a while to do it. But
Yeah.
if you're preaching husbandry for a purpose, it's much different than make sure all the caps are on the, the toys as they go down the line.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. So then your managers, are they homegrown? Have they come up through the system, or did you bring in outside hires? What was your process of finding managers? A little bit of both.
Yes, and yes. Some of them, yeah, some of them come through here, and you see promise in them. And like the guy that runs our shipping department, I remember him coming in, and it was clear early on that he was not like everybody else, both as a person and as a worker.
Hmm.
So you identify those, and that's how you bring them up through. Now, when I was looking for someone to oversee several departments, less of a hands-on and more of a management, I actually went and found someone that had worked for Tyson Foods in a chicken processing facility.
Okay.
Now, what do I know? I know he can take smells, he can take gross, and I know he can manage people doing the same.
Hmm.
So in that instance, I found him and brought him in because I knew he had the skills.
Okay.
Um, like Ryan, who runs our assurance farm. I knew Ryan because he had worked for Zoom Ed for years.
Hmm.
But when he and his wife decided to move away from California, and they were going to come to the Midwest because of this area we live in, um, you know, he's like, let's talk. So, well, geez, I knew he was a great person, and I knew he would know husbandry, and I knew he knew everything about what we do from a larger perspective, from a industry perspective.
Industry.
And so that's a no-brainer, and he's been awesome. And now his wife works here. So these are just great people that I knew from the outside.
Sure.
And so, yeah, so, and kind of on the inside, but on the outside. But so I, I think people that say they have to come up through, I would tell them not always. And then there are those that say, no, you always have to bring in your managers from outside. I completely disagree with that. So I think it's more of a hybrid. I believe so.
Okay. All right.
Because at the end of the day, you're still looking for very unique individuals. In my world, very
Sure.
unique individuals.
Yeah. Kind of take them wherever they come from. Not. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't matter to me as long as we all believe the same thing, and we're going to be honest and hardworking, and then I'm good with all that.
Hey, sounds pretty perfect. I want to
But
switch.
I can tolerate differing opinions even.
Uh-huh.
I can tolerate differing opinion as long as we're all pulling toward the same goal, you
Sure.
know. But everybody doesn't have to agree. I don't mean psychopaths around. I nobody does.
Yeah. And I bet it's nice from your standpoint to have people on your team that'll disagree with you. So you actually feel like someone's giving you pushback at times and not just agreeing because they think it's going to make you happy.
No, and I will tell you, for years when I would go to pet industry shows, so now not a reptile show, my name tag always said sales manager on it because I found that people would be more honest with me if they thought I
Mm,
worked for the company than if I owned it.
yeah, makes sense.
And it's true. Because I do want honesty. I want people to tell me, "Hey, I think that's a mistake," or "I don't think we should do that," or whatever. I want that because these yes men are what make people. You look up and they're out on an island and they've got people standing around them going, "Oh, this is great." And, well, no, it's not.
Yeah.
You've lost your way. It's. I mean, I think corporate culture is business culture, any culture. You got to have the agreement to disagree so that I can hear what the differing opinions are.
Yeah.
I mean, like talking about USARC, we see what some of the other groups of people want to do to us, but if we never listen to what they're saying, we can never explain any kind of retort or even find middle ground if we never explain what the fallacy is about what you're thinking. You've come from hyperbole and hype. I'm actually coming from the truth. Let's see if we can have a conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think that's important in every aspect of life.
Okay. Do you have an example of some dissenting opinion that you had from somebody on your team that actually ended up being a really major step forward for your company?
Only managerially.
Mhm.
Yeah, never from a well, no, I don't have one that fleshed itself out in a different direction, but I have been willing sometimes to say, hmm, you think that would be better overall with this growth? How about you do this? You set me up a test, you show me that, you plus it 4 times what it looks like now so that we see the scaling, and you prove that. And almost always, it actually is always, they'll go, I see why you disagreed with me.
Mm,
And it's one thing for me to tell you I disagree and not explain it. It's
sure.
another if I bring you along to understand because now we've all learned something.
Right.
But managerially, yeah, I'm as we get older, and I don't mean I'm not saying as you go 40 years. I'm saying as you take 5 year, 10-year increments of your life, your perspective on people and how you manage them changes a little bit because I know you'll find this hard to believe, but we become a little bit skeptical as years go on, and we become a little cynical. So the way we right, but so the way we approach things sometimes comes from that edge we've been pushed to,
Sure.
and you need someone that's not been pushed there yet to go, time out. We're only talking about a small portion here. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's think about the people that aren't the problem. And I think that's important. I again,
Sure.
it's if you're the same person, if you can honestly say your approach to everything is the same 10 years apart, I'm going to say I don't think that's true. I think we get better as we go about what's the hill you die on and what's the one you argue on and what's the one you don't even approach.
Mm,
I think, but
okay. Was this kind of managerial, executive, how you want to, describe it, type of mentality, something that came very natural to you, or is this something that you really had to kind of work on with yourself over the years?
no, I guess um, it came naturally. I get what I mean is
Okay.
I had been so even going back to high school, you have student council, you have student government and all that. I, for whatever reason, would always find myself in leadership,
Mm,
not because I wanted it, but because I guess I had so much stuff I thought we ought to be doing, they more or less go, okay,
yeah.
then why don't you do it? So as a result, I guess I had kind of been around people a long time, and I'd watched my dad manage people.
Sure.
My dad was a great manager of people because he and I neither one have ever. We don't manage from an iron fist or a fear.
Right.
Well, by God, I'll get your job. If you get to that point, something's wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
so as a result, I watched him manage people, and I think it changed the way I did or the way I manage people. But I will tell you, I think I've gotten better and
Mm,
worse and better simply because of, as you go through that process.
okay. So then I guess let me turn the question around a little bit. You said ruling with an iron fist, but what are some things that you see with, I guess, some of your peers, either this industry or in others, similar kinds of roles, mistakes that they make in their management team leading style that end up being detrimental to their organizations?
Well, let, let me say it in reverse. Um, I, I'm sure you're curious what this is on the wall behind me. This is actually that's a presidential seal because this is a signed thing from President Ronald Reagan.
Okay.
I'm not a party guy. That's not what I'm talking about. I was an impressionable high school kid during the time that he was becoming and being president.
Mm,
What I learned from him was, as you study these people, you learn that he learned to find people that were good at what they did and then get out of their way.
mm,
So the converse of that, I think, I believe across the board, micromanaging are the things that will always toss the situation.
Okay.
It's one thing for me to say, that's how you learn when you have to delegate and you have to learn to deal with delegating. Yes, you and I may not do that exactly the same way, but as long as it's taken essentially the same time and the quality or whatever comes out of it, I'm okay with it being a little different the way you get there, but what you end up with has to be the same.
Sure.
And I think micromanaging are things that really crush people, because
Yeah.
I would like people to have the ability, certainly in any position other than just, labor, I would like them to have the ability to do it the way they think is best, as long as it works out to the same thing. So I think those are the lessons a lot of people have to learn in management. And I believe where you see a tremendous amount of turnover directly around the manager, it's usually because of that kind of stuff. Where
Okay.
they're either so my error many times is that I will give people their area and I make assumptions that it is like I expect it to be,
Sure.
but then find out it's not exactly. So my error would be not revisiting that often enough to make certain it was the way it was supposed to be. Now, granted, there's someone else who's supposed to be doing that, but that's okay. It's still me. At the end of the day, it's still
Right.
me. So that's why you got to get out and spend time on the farm.
Okay. Makes a lot of
And it's a
sense.
big place. I mean, I can't cover both farms all day, but it's a lot of walking. You can get a
Yeah,
lot
I
of miles
mean,
in here.
might be a good time to pull this up right here. This image that you guys sent over of the farm of farm one, I have to imagine this one is.
This is the main farm. This is the one that started out. You see the ponds?
Yes.
That was from when we also grew fish so that you could come buy 100 catfish to put in your
Mm.
pond.
Wow.
Uh, and because this was my great grandmother's dairy farm. But
Okay.
you see the three buildings that are closest to the pond at the
Yes.
top of the picture. That single building in the middle there, on the opposite side of it, was essentially the first cricket building. That is not it. When these buildings reach their useful life, we tear them down and put them back.
Okay.
Because that's part of the way we build them. It's every so many every 10, 15 years, you got to take them down and put them back, because it gives you a fresh building. But yeah, this is the main farm.
That's insane.
And I think that's current. Yeah. That building to the far right, actually, if you see on the far right of the picture, you see the truck right there parked next to that. That's my truck.
Okay.
And because that's the office building, and that next building across with the two little pavilions, that is that's the employee clubhouse.
Okay.
That's where all their lockers, because
Yeah.
this is one of two parking lots just below it there, or one of three parking lots.
Wow. So, I mean, how many internal square feet of production is running at this facility?
I believe this one is 130,000 or so.
Yeah. Oh my
That's
God. That is
I don't know.
unfathomable to me.
Well, and yeah, you can tell the ones that are all connected are all cricket buildings or moving toward the shipping department.
Okay.
And then the other standalone things, on the very bottom of the picture, that's the complex of mealworm buildings. We grow mealworms there, and we grow superworms there, and we grow calciworms there.
Okay.
And then the building off to the right of those, where you see all those units on the end of the building,
Yes.
that's where all the waxworms come from.
Okay.
So that's why they're all built in different ways. Yeah. So, and that's why you see those small buildings, those two small buildings next to that one.
Yes.
Those are hornworms.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, you can see the greenhouse. That's for the black soldier flies as well.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a whole lot going on, and I mean, you
Gosh.
could take off walking there and get your miles in pretty quick. And the
Yeah.
other farm is kind of crazy too, but not like this one.
I could
Because
imagine.
the differences between the two farms, physically, not functionally, is this farm that we're looking at now. Not only do we produce here, we package and ship from here.
Right.
The other farm only feeds this farm.
And then here's
Yeah,
the
that's the
other
new
farm.
farm. That's been open about 2 years now.
Okay.
That's about, I think that's about 40 or 50,000 square feet there. And that is phase one. If you look off to the end of the picture, that gravel is there because that's the ground is already prepped and everything for phase two. And then phase three is not prepped, but it will go next to that one. Because this farm is designed to grow just like this one up here did.
Wow.
And this one is meant to be physically this we call it the assurance farm because
Sure.
it is the one that maintains the seed stock, will maintain the seed stock of all the species we grow.
Sure. That makes a lot of sense. Could you have foreseen anything like this when you were in your early 20s?
No, and my dad is the same way. My dad still will come and go, what the heck? I don't know how you do this. But no, and I don't think, again, okay, I'll tell you this. I was standing on the dock on one of those buildings 15, 20 years ago, right as we were growing crazy. It was my box supplier who I used to fish bass tournaments with. We were standing on
Hmm.
the dock and he looked at me and he said, "Are you done growing?" And I
Uh,
said, "I have no idea." He said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, when they ask for them, I grow 'em."
yeah.
And that's where that has been my attitude has always been, well, if you want them, I'll grow them. So no, I couldn't have ever imagined that. And if I said I did, you'd know I was lying. Because no, I can't. I mean, I grow bugs for heaven's sakes. I mean, they ask me what I do, I tell them I'm a bug rancher.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, yeah. And everybody goes, seriously, what do you do? And I'll go, okay, I grow bugs. I'm being very serious. But I talk to other farmers. I spent some time talking to a farmer who is a sod farmer.
Hmm.
And he said, I hear you're a farmer. I said, I am. I said, I hear you're a farmer. He said, yeah. I said, what kind of farm do you do? He said, it's different. And I said, okay, what is it? He said, well, we grow sod. And I said, that is different. He said, what do you do? I said, I grow bugs. And he said, what? And even he was blown away because, yeah, it should sound crazy because
Yeah.
it is crazy. But yeah, so no, there's no way I could have. Again, I will tell you, going back to the beginning, it's only because I was dumb enough or crazy enough to continue to say yes
Hmm.
to the idea because I had learned from my dad early on that I mean you're just going to work more and I mean it's not that I hated being at home, it's just that because I love being at home, but my point is it's just part of your mentality has to be you go where the market goes and you do what you do.
Sure.
And if you don't have that attitude, I suppose then you've reached some point that you're comfortable, and man, comfortable is the apex of
It's dangerous.
yeah, it's and so I don't talk about retirement.
Yeah.
I'll have my friends that'll go, "Are you gonna retire soon?" And I go, "And what would I do?" Like I don't dislike my job. I love my job. And people will say, "Hey, I gotta travel again this weekend." And I was at the game the other day and said, "You gonna be home a while?" I said, "No, I gotta go to Dallas this weekend for a reptile show." I bet you hate that. Well, yeah, I hate being away from my family, but no, I love the community and I
Yeah.
love being there. So no, I don't hate going to work. It doesn't bother me at all. So I don't think about retiring. At some point, they'll probably go, "Look, you're getting crazy. You need to go." But that's what my son's for.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, all right, let me ask you about scaling. So
Mhm.
obviously, I guess not to say obviously, but to me, it seems, at least from the conversation so far, it's mostly been reflexive. It's like, okay, the market is there. Let's go take it. Time to scale. Is that essentially correct?
Yes and no. I have always had the attitude you have to be sitting on extra. Okay, because
Okay.
let's see, today's Wednesday. There will be 4 tractor trailer loads of bugs that will leave here, 4 or 5 today.
Mhm.
I mean, one of them could burn up on the highway, literally.
Sure. Yeah.
So I do need to be able to fix that for people. So we're always pushing extra.
Okay.
So it was more, I rarely had to tell people I need time to get ready, but I felt like I was always getting ready.
Okay.
in other words, I would always have a building pad with the pipes and everything ready, just so if the seasonality, and when I had the fire started at 11:30 in the morning. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I sat down in my office with the contractors, the HVAC, the electrician, and they started another building the next morning at 5:30.
That's
And
amazing.
it wouldn't have happened that way had I not been prepared. Now, granted, was I prepared for a fire? No, nobody's ready for that. That was crazy. But my point is, it was burning here, and we were talking about building there, because I feel like that's part of the deal. I have to be ready. Yeah, it's because that's the one thing you can control. Now, how long does it take me to get a building up and going? I can't control that. Once I have the building, yes, it takes a certain time to get it full. But the part I can control, I sure as hell want to do as fast as I can.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So then, I guess, what was the learning process of how to scale efficiently and in a way where you're not having an oh shit moment down the line of, we did this wrong, we did this too quickly, we weren't prepared for XYZ. What was that kind of learning process like?
Yeah, we had those. It didn't necessarily sound like that, but certainly. Okay, so our early on scaling issues, again, 1 + 1 don't equal 1 when you scale, but it was always things that you don't think about. So now let's take this idea. If it's going to take me 40 days to get that cricket to be an adult, and then you need X number coming out as an adult just to continue production, but you also you're hitting heavy these two sizes in between there. So how many can you take out, and how many do you have to let grow through if you're scaling to millions?
Yeah.
So those were where our early fails happen. And what that usually was, is it usually meant when we got to the end and you go, I don't have enough.
Yeah.
Then you switch how you do it the next time, so that now you're pushing enough down the road. That's not going to happen. And those were the things in every species across the board that we added, that there were always things we were learning. Hell, I can remember learning a lesson about little wasps that sting waxworms, and then they lay their eggs inside them. Okay, you get, I mean, we like a bot flies, that kind of thing. But when that happens, they become they're frozen. They can't move. They're paralyzed.
Wow.
So we would run into things where we're going, what the heck is going over here? And then you'd have to track back through, calling entomologists to figure out what on earth could be going here. Now, whoever imagined that? Not me.
Sure.
And whoever imagined that specific wasp only hatches this time of year in these parts of the country, and this is how they get in? Never knew that. So those are things you can't have imagined, that you have to learn from, and that changes how you do fresh air intake and all that.
Yeah.
And I would say we learned that with everything, because we do everything different here than you normally do with HVAC, because we want to bring a room to temperature and to humidity based on species. And then after a period of time, we want all that air to be freshly brought in.
Right.
But we have to damper it, because we have to bring it to temperature before it comes in. So those were things, again, we learned about the linearity of growing things that are repetitive growers. You know, if you've got 100 snakes that you're hoping are going to be ready by Tinley October, and for whatever reason they're not because of age, then okay, you can only sell them in November, December. What if you have to have them in October? Okay, that's kind of how there are no wiggles for us. Like, they just have to go out.
Right.
So it's kind of like we've had to put the system together where we always know I've got some backup somehow, somewhere over there on this farm or on that farm.
Yeah. Okay. And I'd have to imagine that getting that exact kind of specificity down had to be challenging, considering, unlike with rodents, you can't just halt the growth at some point. This is
Correct.
how big they are. So then what was that like of always having a live stockpile as opposed to the much easier frozen stockpile?
Well, I've often said, as much as people complain about having the ship frozen and all the hassle that goes along with it, at the end of the day, live is the bigger bear. Because at the end of the day, this has to go on all the time,
Yeah.
even on holiday weeks. Okay, so we're going to ship the same number on when Christmas is in the middle of the week. We only get to ship once or twice. Like
Mhm.
this year, Christmas being late in the week, we had to ship Monday for Tuesday, Friday for Saturday, I think, whatever it was. But the whole process of learning how to, I don't know, it wasn't just scaling, it was more the process of how to, because all of our departments have to run backward. What I mean by that is, so if we're going to harvest crickets today that are going to go out today, they have to start early enough to get them harvested in every department so that it all funnels down to the shipping department, who the last pull has to happen by 7:45 tonight.
Hmm.
So, and I don't even remember what the question was, but my point is, the whole process of figuring all of that out but it never change. It does never stay the same.
Sure.
It's always changing. I
Okay.
don't even remember what the question was.
No, I think that was kind of exactly the answer. Just like figuring out that live stockpile, just exactly how many need to be produced, where, what intervals, and just so you always are ready for your customers at any point in time.
Because the only thing that we grow that can be held for a period of time would be mealworms.
Right.
Those I can put in the cooler, but
Yeah.
I,
For
at
only
the end
so
of the day, if okay, if you tell me no, don't ship mine this week, I'll take them next week. That's fine. They're not going to be the same size, so you're going to, we're so I think most likely it's people's perception about what we do, because almost everything else has some kind of a backstop. In other words, you go to a warehouse and you take it off the shelf. You go to the freezer, you take it out. None of ours is like that.
Hmm.
Everything has to be harvested and gone today, to tomorrow, whatever the case. So
Right.
yeah, and at the end of the week, when we're done shipping on Friday, whatever was harvested extra, whatever, all has to be. We don't put it back into production. It all has to essentially, employees take it home or whatever, because once it's out, nothing ever goes back into production.
Sure.
It's not
Makes sense.
like going to, like you've seen us at a reptile show. I tell people everything we've got here has to go, because it's not going back home. We don't,
Yep.
the whole viral thing and everything. But in general, when something leaves production, it never goes back. So
Sure.
we have to run that pretty close. But we run 4 harvests a day. It's always going on,
Okay.
and we're adding to it. And those are hand delivered, because you got to look the managers in the eye and you get what I need, right? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We tried it years ago where they were looking at computer reports. And that
Mhm.
doesn't work. You need managerial positions still have to happen in person.
Sure. And I think a lot of the world realized that with COVID, with as many businesses had to go remote.
No.
Don't work that way, unfortunately, for a lot of things.
No, and I mean, for us, there was no remote.
Right. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Cleaning crickets remotely might not be the best plan.
No, no, and I will tell you that I will tell you, it was an interesting phone call, because whenever it became apparent what was going to happen, closing everything down, my phone started ringing, but it was big names going, "You are still going to ship, right?" And yeah, I mean, they told us, "Well, you're essential, so you can work, should work."
Yeah.
And you got farmers looking at each other going, "Okay, thanks for telling us we can work." And, okay, because it's not like I'm going to go, okay, crickets, we'll be back in a month. We'll see you in a little bit.
Yeah, right.
You know, flatten the curve, flatten the curve. It just, at the end of the day, we just kept right on working. It just made things incredibly well, Andy, who used to be our sales manager, for months, Andy and I met up every morning at 4:30 in the morning, coffee in hand, to take temperatures and spray hands, and as everybody came through,
Mm.
to make sure we doing what we were supposed to do. That was a crazy time. Never happened again. Not like that.
No,
No,
absolutely.
it unfortunately crushed a lot of businesses.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah.
Horrible.
And it created
Now,
a
I
whole.
will tell you, our demand went up about 30% during that time,
Okay.
which was almost unbearable.
Sure.
It not only were we were working
Around the
crazy.
clock. Yeah.
Yeah, it was something.
Oh, yeah. It was.
I don't want to do it again.
I could imagine so. Yeah. I could
Yeah.
imagine you're pretty much probably good with what's going on now.
Yeah.
So I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. You know, we might circle back to something like this later, but I want to talk about Vitabugs.
Okay.
You know, I'm not trying to like blow smoke right now, but it's, in my opinion, I think it's the number one innovation in the history of our industry is Vitabug. You know, we kind of talked a little bit earlier about the in-house production of diet. Was there a moment, was there a situation where the light bulb clicked that this is what's going to really explode what we're doing here, where this is a necessary next step?
Okay. Yes and no. Here's the thing. The gentleman that I worked with on it, who has been our entomologist for many years, it started as a conversation. Okay. We just instinctively, we should all know that a reptile in the wild is likely fed more closely the diet it really is intended to, because it's in its own range.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Well, insects are the same way. So, in other words, you go to the store and you buy grass-fed beef, right?
Hmm.
I'm not sure why that's important that it's grass-fed, except it must be something that the others are eating that we don't want. And the reason that is because cattle, hogs, everything need to get to market as fast as possible.
Right.
So you fatten them up as fast as you can. Isn't that right? Well, guess what? Insects have been grown exactly the same way. The cheapest food, get them out the door as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Well, as a result, the actual nutrients they're getting don't look anything like what's in the wild. Okay. They weren't getting enough vitamin A, not enough vitamin D, not enough vitamin E. I mean, the whole point was, our question was, would it be possible to take an insect that's so commonly used, feed it a completely different type of diet, and would it retain the nutrients in its stomach or its body?
Right.
Because again, this whole thing of gut loading, I know why we all use it, and I know why we all talk about it, but I don't know how to. The best way I can describe it is, when a cricket eats, it's like a normal person having a White Castle. There's a very fast response.
Yeah.
And so for us to believe that the contents of what we just fed it are there and count on it, it works, obviously, but we felt like we should try to make the insects better.
Yeah.
So we reverse engineered it. We basically took wild insects, did all their nutrient assays to try to figure out what was missing in ours. And so then we had to begin to bump those values up to determine if A, they could receive them, and B, if they would retain them. And that's what took so many years,
Hmm.
was trying to figure out. So let me give you an example. So ingredients nowadays are added in the feed as little balls. Do you know that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Do you remember when it was common for hand soaps to have those little balls in them?
Sure.
Okay. It's the same concept. That was to deliver the smell or whatever to your hand. So now in animal feed, we add those tiny little balls of those different vitamins. Feed a food like that to a cricket, put it under a microscope. You know what's left when they're done? The little balls.
Mm,
Okay, because they couldn't break through them
sure.
because they have to be durable to be able to be delivered. So then it took us years to figure out how then can we add the nutrients in a way that they could use them, which means you take dry food, wet it, and dry it again. And what we came out the other side is we knew that not only would the vitamins stay, that they would do so for the duration of when you have them at home, unless you're significantly changing their size. So if you take a 1/4 inch Vitabug and you grow it up to a 1/2 inch or 3/4, you should believe you're getting half of what you expected because you've been feeding it something different.
Sure.
So we knew instinctively that if we could, its value would be amazing, because we all know that one of the ways that reptiles, their light is diminished is when they can no longer see food well, right? Because they can't catch it. Well, if we're not giving them enough vitamin A, then their eyes won't. So we had to learn that a caterpillar or a grasshopper, because their eyes are so big, have so much more vitamin A in them as an individual thing.
Mm,
Crickets are disproportionately large-eyed too, which is why that was important, because that's where you carry the vitamin A, not in the gut. You carry it in the eyes,
okay.
the actual.
Interesting. I guess that makes sense. Yeah.
So, so we knew it was a big deal to the animals, and yes, we know it's a big deal to the industry, but not everybody gets it. I mean, I there's still a large portion of the population that does not understand that it's not a gimmick; it's an actual thing. It's not a cool name. We called it that because that's what they are.
Yeah.
Whether it's a mealworm or a cricket or whatever, as long as we can grow it the right way, then it will have it. So yeah, we knew it was big, but again, what we were looking for was actually our goal was to increase the longevity of the animals,
Mhm.
the individual animals, so that it increases the longevity of people's interest in it.
Sure.
Because if you go, the peril of the fish tank, fish hobby has always been: you get a tank, you set it up, the fish die, you're pissed off, you throw it away, right? You're out. Well, we want these animals to live longer, and so, and we know, even the time you've been involved in the hobby, the length of expected life has gone up on it.
Oh, sure.
Now, the reptile hobby runs the same problem as we do with our dogs and cats. They're still obese because we still overfeed them, but we overfeed ourselves, so here we are. But nonetheless, their lives are going to be longer if they're correctly fed. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where our motivation was.
Okay. So was it a process of just better vitamin transmission, I guess, to the animals, or even beyond that to just the ingredients of the diet, the macronutrient makeup? What all did you kind of, in many details as you're willing to give, kind of change
Well,
about
all
a
of
standard
those.
cricket diet to where you ended up?
We actually used our standard diet as the control, and then tried to walk it backwards by adding to it. So that's how we started, because we knew we could succeed here just with growing them, but it was all the nutrients we needed to add in, and that we could get in a form that they would use. And I can't even begin to speak to the differences in the forms. There are different kinds, and I don't mean the how does it feel. I'm talking about the type of acid or whatever.
Yeah.
That wasn't. That's way above my. That I gloss over real fast at that stuff. But it was a matter of walking through figuring out the right ones, then making it into a feed that would hold it all, and then it came down to taking the environment and the expected grow time and finding the sweet spot, because they're not cheap, because the food is crazy expensive compared,
Right.
but they also take a little longer because we've got to slow grow to get all that to lock into their body. Because again, we always did the testing to avoid gut matter.
Yeah.
And when we would do our residual testing, we would always hold them for a week and then ship them to be tested, hold them for 2 weeks, and then ship them to be tested, so that we were making certain that it was in their body and not in their food or something temporary.
Sure. Okay.
So I mean, it started on a whim, and then it got, well, maybe we're onto something. Then it got to be, there's too much data, but I think we're onto something, to that. Find a little hump where you go, we actually are onto something. Like I think we've got it. And then it was probably 2 years before we agreed we had it.
Okay.
Because worst case scenario is you tell somebody you're going to give them a food that helps their animal. You don't need to gut load. You've got to get vitamin D involved. But other than that, or proper sunlight, other than that, you've got it all. Worst case scenario would be telling they're covering all their bases and not be, and then it would be horrible.
Yeah.
So we did some testing, even Brian Barczyk did some testing. Leopard geckos and bearded dragons. Anyway, what he was doing basically is he took clutches and fed them control, fight a bug, and they were growing. Not only were they growing faster, they were more vibrant, because that's where a lot of the beta carotene and everything comes in. It's what they need for their body. And we do nothing to supplement that. If you just take a standard cricket, you're going to do nothing to supplement that.
Right.
So during that time, we were pretty sure we were onto it, but we wanted some people to agree with us. And yeah, that it was noticeable enough to, I mean, it's all been written up and peer reviewed and everything. So it is actual science, not garbage.
Yeah, absolutely. So from the initial kind of inception of the idea until product ready for market, how long did that take?
You mean after the 10 years?
I guess, yeah, just in total of getting it to the point where, you're having these kind of independent people test it out to where you're like, all right, we're solid, we're ready to go.
Well, that all
10
was
years.
in that 10-year
Okay.
process. And then there were
Got it.
probably 2 on the end is when we knew we had it. We just, I had to make certain that anybody that I presented it to would at least take the time to understand what I was saying.
Sure.
And we got a lot of veterinarians involved in that, because we wanted people to understand, we're going to tell you what it will do, but we'd like you to understand why those things are important before we ever explain to you what we're up to. And
Right.
one of the early adopter veterinarians was like, you got to be kidding. I mean, this is like a change in the world to us, because now we know that if we can mimic what they do in the wild, that piece is checked off from a nutritional standpoint.
Sure. Yeah, that's incredible.
But gosh, I can remember, Stephen, whenever people first brought sugar gliders in our tray, they couldn't. So what they fed them a lot was fruit, because they knew that they liked to eat fruit. But early on in our trade, they were not reproducing at all. They were all wild caught. It wasn't until they started feeding them actual protein, cat food or something like that, that they were getting the kind of nutrition that was required for them to reproduce. That reproduction began to start, because it was based on a fallacy from the start that we thought we understood their nutritional needs, but we didn't. And we learned, and we get better.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the garbage we found that is in dog food and cat food that we now know we're glad isn't in it. And like us eating lead paint, I'm glad we stopped that. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
We learn as we go, and our trade is no different. And our information traveled such a narrow highway for so many years, because there was no way there was Reptiles magazine, and Philippe and Gigi had the Reptile and Amphibian Report or whatever that was, but we did not have a lot of ways to communicate. So it was why it was important for us to be together and talk.
Sure.
Different than most other hobbies.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like you said, this being kind of a novel innovation, how was it received initially by the market? Was it something that everyone kind of jumped on? Was there some hesitancy? Like, what's going on? Did people even ever consider that their feeders could be better than they were?
Again, when it depended on your level of understanding. The
Sure.
people that understood up front why all of that was important, like you understand why your animal has to have good eyes, and you understand why your diet doesn't get it any vitamin A. They're
Right.
getting it, but not enough. The people that understood that early adopted immediately. Now, granted, as I told you, they're much more expensive to produce, but because
Yeah.
of all the nutrients. But you if you understand that, but that's the thing that's always gotten me. Again, it's food. I understand that, but it should be good food. It should be good quality food.
Right.
But now we're taking good quality food and making it something that's actually functionally necessary. Um, so people that understood that adopted early. People that kind of understood it, it took a while. And there's some people that still believe it's a gimmick, and that's fine because I'm not going to hard preach it. I'm not that kind of a salesman.
Sure.
I'll tell you about it. I'll tell you what I know. But if you don't get it, I'm not going to knock your door down because
Yeah.
you'll know it one day if you're open to learning. So much of the population is not, well, a lot of the population is not really ready to learn
Right.
because they believe they know everything, which is why we have so many conversations in our world that are so, you don't understand, you're dumb. Okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know anything until I learn it. Just teach me. Don't yell at me.
Sure. Absolutely.
Well,
I want to ask you about how you decided to price the product, because for everything that goes into it, it's not that much more expensive than your standard issue equivalent bugs. So yeah, I guess what was the decision as to how much to mark up the Vita bugs compared to the standard issue?
purely cost.
Okay.
That was it. Again, I didn't do it to make a bunch of money.
Sure.
So I just basically took the model of the cricket pricing and marked it up whatever it had to be to cover the cost,
Okay.
which meant that we basically devalued 10 years of work, but that's not why we did it.
Sure.
And I didn't do it as an investment. I did it as an improvement in the process. That was really why I did it. You make, we equivalently make the same from either. It was never about the money of it. And the pricing was
Okay.
what was forced out. We didn't sit around and go, I think we can get more for that. It wasn't that. I just had to recover the cost because their prices don't change
Yeah.
in our world very often.
Sure. I almost was wondering if you even were losing a little bit relatively considering how much more the food was costing, because me not knowing the dollars and cents of mass production of feeds, I saw, I look at the website and I see that the price difference. And I'm like, I wonder if it's even covering the increase in production cost. So I guess
I'm sure my controller would say different. I think it probably does, but
yeah.
I will tell you, there is no elasticity in my world. So if you go back and you look at cricket prices from 20 years ago, they're awfully similar.
Mm,
So at the end of the day, those costs I know over this year, many of those nutritional pieces have been expensive.
yeah.
But I mean, so it is what it is because I can't really change the price.
Well, no, I mean, I give
I
you
can, but just not much.
I give you a lot of credit for it, because I think if you look at equivalent sectors of the pet industry, be it dog or cat food, anything that's kind of gone natural, it prices most people out of the market, which
Right.
would then get into another conversation of, okay, if you can't afford to feed your pet that way, should you have a pet? I think that's a different conversation altogether. But, people would look at feeding their dog and costing twice as much as it is now. There's going to be a large portion of the population that won't even take a second look. But if you're to, what is it, 10% more than your standard issue bugs or something like that?
I don't even know that. I'm a horrible salesman.
People
know that. I don't know that.
But it's a fairly minimal difference. Then that would be probably a whole heck of a lot more palatable to somebody who's considering switching, especially now if you don't have to pay for whatever gut load you were using in the process. So I think I admire a lot that the barrier to entry for a new customer is very low relative to kind of comparable products within the pet industry.
I appreciate that. I just wanted people to adopt it. I just wanted people to
Yeah.
use it mainly because I think it's better for the animals. And I can remember telling Gary Bagnall, you know, I know you guys sell gut load stuff. I'm not trying to hurt you here. I just think he knew I was kidding. But my point was, I don't even say anything bad about gut loads and dusts and all
Yeah.
that. That's a whole, it's not that. I wasn't trying to replace those. I just was really trying to create an insect that, and I will tell you, there are other insects that we've been working on for a while that we may someday get them to Vitabug too. But it has to be impeccable for me to even consider the concept, because I don't want to sully the idea that somehow it's not valuable, because I absolutely know those nutrients are valuable. I know that for certain.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So then how did this implementation in your business kind of change the operations as far as how you organize things, how you had to organize the structure of getting the right food to the right building? Were there, were there hurdles to overcome by now not only having your standard issue of all the different species of bugs, now having your Vitabugs where you implemented them?
Not so much. The reason that is because all of our food is brought in and on pneumatic trucks and blown into silos.
Yeah. Okay.
So now it was just a matter of correctly marking which one is which,
Sure.
and the people have to know what rooms they're going to, because not all rooms contain Vitabugs, and it
Right.
was more that kind of thing than anything. It's like everything else. You know, you just have to direct the right stuff to the right spot, the right grind of carrot to the right size worms, or whatever.
Sure.
That wasn't so hard. It was just,
Okay.
obviously we had to have separate, so you got to put more different grain bins in and all that. So that's just that's cost of doing business. It's kind of the way it
Sure.
works.
So you were kind of already so automated by then that it really just kind of fit right in pretty seamlessly.
By the Vitabug, yeah. By the Vitabug, by
Yeah.
the time we got there, yeah, it was just a matter of how we assign what goes where.
Okay. And that's kind of I think a good transition to another thing I want to ask you about is automation within the business. Obviously, when it comes to any sort of feeder, the more you can automate, the better. And I'd have to imagine there's a lot of automation going on there. How did that evolve over time? And I guess if you want to get into it, what are some of the systems that really increased productivity for you in the company?
We use less automation other than assistive equipment in production than we do in harvest and packaging.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, so if I've got to produce 15,000 cups of 50 standard mealworms in them, the way I used to do them doesn't work anymore, because we used to count or scoop. So we use what is essentially we have production lines that are pharmaceutical counters that are counting the worms as they fall, so that it dumps it in the cup. So those kind of things, and how we palletize stuff to go on the trucks, and those are really where the automation is coming. How
Okay.
we do the crickets in the cups, how it gets labeled and sealed. That's really where the automation is, because at the end of the day, if I could automatically dump feed and water in the containers, which I can remember the days we had an automatic watering system early on. Yeah, mighty. I'd like to know how many things got broken and flooded, and
Oh
that
gosh.
was bad. That was a horrible idea. Some people still use it, but for me, it was a horrible idea. But at the end of the day, the automation on the food side and the water side and the care side is less as important as physically looking at my stuff today. If
Mhm.
you could feed all of your collection of snakes automatically, would you never open the tubs?
There's a chance. Yeah. With some, I
Yeah,
guess, to feed and clean, or to water and clean, but yeah, it would be, it wouldn't be something I would think twice about doing.
right. So by the same token, it's important that we're looking at them
Sure.
as we're going. Is
Yeah.
this a healthy box? Did did the majority of these babies move once we place them in the box? If not, then this one needs to be marked to take out because something went on. But now I got to follow where those eggs came from because I got to understand why that did that. It's important that people see it. So automation on the back end is not, other than, you know, machines to slice potatoes, and, you know, when you're slicing up several tons of potatoes, yeah, I don't do that anymore. But it's
Okay.
not on the husbandry side. It's always on the outbound side.
Okay. All
Because I
right.
still insist upon being people looking at them and interacting with them. But Stephen, it's no different. If we do reptile shows or industry shows, I'm there
Right.
because I need to be able to see what's going on. Would I like to be at home? Could I be at home? Yeah. I don't think it's right. I think I need to be there. So
Yeah.
likewise, I think those people need to be in those rooms and they need to be able to see them. And so yes, I could probably save some money to automate, but that's not where I think it needs to be automated.
Okay.
It needs to be on anything that is not on the husbandry side.
Okay.
I think so.
No, I mean, I think it goes right in line with your philosophy of not, you know, cutting corners to maximize the experience. Because I guess let me ask you, when you tried this automated water system, what was the prior system, and then what were the issues that came from this automation?
So if I could describe the way it used to be, and there's still some farms that use the jars, chicken feeder,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I'm talking about, as
Mm-hmm.
your water source.
Yep.
Um, so that's not a great idea, notwithstanding it's extremely gross.
Sure.
So we use a put and take system now, but before, what it was is they were essentially, it looked like a gutter that would drop water down through an IV, which is great, except because of all the fittings. Remember, boxes are put up, taken down, they're in stacks everywhere. So you jostle a rack and you happen to just jar one loose, you'd flood the box, and when the box flooded, it would break all the way down and flood the boxes beneath it and crash. So it was a lot of time. Again, this is where I early on determined that what we're encouraging people to do is spend less time in there, but that's where they need to be spending their time, is in there.
Mm,
So it was the eyes off, and it was the just the crap that would go on with it that I wanted to get away from. Because I don't value those savings over the value of people that care being there where they can see them.
sure. Okay. It definitely
I
makes
guess that
sense.
answers your question. I kind of talk
Yeah.
so long, I can't remember what I'm talking.
No problem. Yeah. I've experienced that whole flooding phenomenon with rodents more times than I'd like to admit. And
You know, you
yeah,
know.
that's like the main thing you want to avoid in that type of operation. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's,
And
I agree.
speaking of rodents, do you understand how many times over the years people have tried to get me to go into growing rodents?
I could imagine frequently. Yeah, I could
I've
imagine.
always I've always said, no, no, look, let me do what I do. Okay,
Sure.
let me do what I know I can do well, and let's let somebody else do that.
Sure.
Because I still, learning from this guy, I want to find what I can do well, and I want to do it well and find people that can help me do that.
Sure.
I'm not greedy. Again, not that that would be a greedy move. It could be sound like a logical move. That's not why I would do it. I would do it if suddenly my customers couldn't find them anywhere forever. But
Sure.
you and
Yeah,
I both know that's a completely different distribution model.
absolutely. Yeah.
I like being able to ship small package because I started as a distributor driving a truck delivering stuff.
Sure.
So I'm all right with not doing that anymore.
So then let me ask you this from the standpoint of trying to find what you're good at and doing it well. Was there ever a time where you had the thought of maybe just doing exclusively crickets for that reason, as it being
Uh,
your bread and butter?
Well, Stephen, I will tell you, early on, of course,
Yeah,
I never wanted to do the other things, never wanted to, but I never hated the idea.
sure.
But here's a good one. Because this will give you the history of it all.
All right.
When I first got into the pet industry, small packages not how it was delivered. We used distributors. So I would ship air freight to California, New York. I would ship where the distributors were delivering them.
Mhm.
So goodness, yes. I mean, why don't I do 10 shipments a week rather than 10,000?
Yeah.
But the market changed because those distributors started going away. Distribution squeezed down to dry goods. If you, there are some live goods distributors out there still that run fish and all that, all over the country. But by and large, the market changed, and now they wanted everything from one spot, as many as they could. So, as any marketer knows, you always want to increase the basket. Well, this is one where the basket had to increase if I really wanted to be able to take care of it. Because yes, there are pet stores in general that only want to buy crickets from me and waxworms from somebody else or whatever. But by and large, they want to get as many as they can in one box, so it's one piece
Yeah.
taken care of. So that would be the change in the industry. And that would be the reason I changed the idea of just growing crickets. Because again, I never decided I only wanted to grow crickets. I just knew that's where I was. But I knew that if I wanted to grow more crickets, I was going to have these other things to make
Sure.
that basket bigger. So it was never my desire to do it, just kind of the way the market worked.
Did you ever think at the time, let me source all of these other auxiliary bugs instead of home growing them? Was that ever something that you considered?
Something we did for a while.
Okay.
Uh, but by the time we got to 98 or so, and we began to realize all these viruses that were running around as it relates to crickets, we knew it then had to be a closed house.
Yeah.
So that's when biosecurity became such a big deal here, because there are a lot of growers that I grew up knowing in the bait business that lost their business to
Yeah.
the virus. And we took it serious. When it first started in Europe, I went to a meeting at Daytona with the European people, with Marshall Myers and a lot of people from the UK, a lot of people from the US. And we had to learn what we could learn about this virus because we knew it was bad news.
Mhm.
I took everything I heard to heart. I came back, started putting foot baths in, spraying tires. I mean, I started doing everything I was told to do, but not everybody did.
Sure.
And then when we had the mealworm shortage, there was a mealworm shortage in the country back
Yeah.
many years ago.
I remember.
And when that happened, some people forgot that important information, and they brought mealworms in from Europe, which was ground zero for the cricket virus.
Mhm.
And once they hit the States, they started making their way around. And fortunately, we weren't in the network,
Yeah.
or we would have been like everybody else. But by then, we had become a closed farm, and it is just that way. It's
Yeah.
it became our new world, and it's how we do things. That's
Sure.
why these two farms are nowhere near one another.
Yeah. I mean, that's
And there are no common employees among the farms. There is nobody that works on this farm that works on that one.
Yeah.
I am probably the only person that goes between the two farms, except for maybe Eric when he's working on the computers.
okay. Yeah. I mean, once you get to a point, I feel like you don't have a choice there. If you're
I don't have any
actually
choice.
taking what you're doing seriously, you know.
It's exactly right. It's just the way it is. The trucks don't like sometimes that when they roll in, the first thing they do is stop tractor trailer. Yes, we have to spray all 18 wheels. I don't care if you like it or not. You're welcome to not to come.
Mhm.
But if you're coming here, if you're coming past that sign, we're going to spray your tires, and you're going to hit that footpath, or you're not getting out of your truck.
Wow. Even
So I
still
mean,
this day, that's the protocol. Yeah.
100%. We have probably more biological protocols now than we've ever had, just simply because we have so many species that have so many different things that don't necessarily play well with others.
Sure. No, makes a ton of sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Because again, that virus did nothing to the mealworms. It was
Mm,
simply a carrier. It didn't
got it.
affect them at all, but it killed the snot out of the crickets.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. I remember just hearing about the whole cricket virus thing. And I mean, something like that, not taken seriously, can ruin the entire industry, not even just a bug farm, like the herpetoculture industry as a whole.
I will tell you that I have a friend who's no longer in the business, but was in the business at the time of the mealworm shortage. And he still contends that the mealworm shortage cost him $1 million.
Mm,
And he was on the reptile producer side.
mm,
And that was simply because the lack of food that he could get reduced the size of the clutches.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I just, again, it goes back to the whole baby food thing. I just have always taken it seriously enough. Yeah, I fear for my business and for all of these people's lives who are affected by this business, but I mostly believed it and feared it from the jump simply because I knew it would be horrible for everybody in the industry. So why do I not take it serious? But some people don't. I mean, it's
Sure.
different. But there are people that are involved in our industry that never come near it.
Right.
You know, they never come. They're never around the people. They're just, well, I think if you value the collective people in it more, you'll take a little more closer attitude to the way we ought to, because we're all in this together. Yeah, it's a hobby. Yeah, it's a business. Yeah, it's a lot of things. But at the end of the day, it's something that's very important to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
Some their period of solace in the day is spending time with their animals. Some they produce animals. It's what they do. Some grow crickets to give to the animals, and some just like to go look at them in zoos. But at the end of the day, it's still things that they're passionate about and enjoy, and we get to be part of that. It's the
Absolutely.
beauty of it. I always tell people we're not selling toothpaste. Nobody finds toothpaste fun, right? You do it because you have to do it. This is part of our hobby. This is part of our lives. That's fun. It's our hobby. So why do you not want to be around your hobby? Heaven's sakes, it's a great place to be. I'll
Absolutely.
enjoy my whole time in Dallas this weekend simply
Yeah.
because I'm going to be around people I like.
Yeah. No doubt. I mean, how much do you attribute your success to that kind of mindset? The mindset where you're not just thinking about yourself or your company or whatever, where, I mean, anyone who's been to a US ARC auction is aware of who you are,
Right.
Um,
We have fun.
yes, it sure looks like fun. I can only imagine
It
how
is
fun it
fun.
actually
It's fun.
is. I
It's
mean,
meant to be fun.
yes, for sure. I mean, how much do you attribute your success to that type of mindset and philosophy?
Stephen, here's the deal. I don't know that answer.
Mm,
Because that's just me, right?
just
And that's not who I am on paper. That's just how I am. It is. So I guess maybe that's why. I just know that but I've always been that way. You treat people right, be cordial and courteous and appreciate them. Why would we not be happier? So
yeah.
if all of those things are how it collectively attributes it, then okay, but I just know I like being happy and I sure like making people happy. And I like happy people around me. It's why you will never find me in the middle of drama. Because when the
Mm,
drama starts, I'm usually out the door. Because
yeah.
I don't like negativity. That's why you don't hear me talking bad about people. I'm not doing that.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
just want us all to get along here.
I can't imagine somebody with your life having even a second of time to indulge anything of the sorts for even a second.
But but Stephen, if you know, even if I had did the time, even if I had the time to do it, I couldn't.
Yeah.
I don't. It's not where I dwell.
Yeah.
I can't be there because it's just not where I'm at. I am definitely the half full guy,
Mm,
not the half empty guy.
yeah.
I'm just not. If you ask me how I'm doing at a show in the morning, you'll almost always the response you'll get from me is, "I woke up, pretty damn good day."
Yeah.
And that's just the way it is. It is. I wake up, we get another chance to do this thing, and let's all just be happy. And we're around everybody's hobby. Jeez, why not be happy?
Yeah.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
No, no doubt. So we're kind of in the latter portion of the episode here. Again, I really appreciate you taking the time. This has been incredible.
Of
What
course.
what's on your mind for the future? I can only imagine you're not the type of person to ever be content, kind of always thinking about something. What do you see as either the future of your company or kind of the future of our industry, or what should happen for our industry?
I don't know. I mean, as far as this company goes, I'm the second generation. I got three sons. This will be the third generation.
Sure.
And we will continue to be the kind of company we are, and hopefully we continue to get bigger only because more people need help. I think our industry is crazy strong. I
Mm,
know everybody goes, well, that species and that species. But look, talk to these guys that have been around longer than me. Talk to me. This happens. This is just normal. This is any market, regardless whether it's in the pet industry or anything else. This is just where it is. So it used to be that the color of worms to fish with, like plastic worms, that one year it was the chartreuse. It's the big color. Everybody goes and buys it. The reason everybody went and bought it is because everybody went and bought it. At the end of the day, our hobby is strong. Our hobby, our interest in our hobby continues to get stronger. I said it years ago. I knew we were making the right progress in the hobby whenever I started seeing reptiles in movies and commercials. They don't put them in there as a novelty. They put them because it somehow reflects modern life.
Sure.
So our modern life is smaller than it used to be in our spaces. So reptiles fit that. You can have a reptile and you can be gone for several days. You can't do that with a dog. You might be able to do it with a cat. You might not have curtains when you get back. But the point is, at the end of the day, we are in a hobby that accommodates the current size of our world, in our individual world. So we're strong and we're getting stronger. And as far as what's going to go on with it, it's going to continue on, because there were people 20 years ago that thought it was a bubble, and it wasn't. We were just on a little hill. That's not true, because it fits. So I think this company, I think our businesses are just going to continue to thrive as long as we continue to offer up the right respect in the way we approach the market. And I mean, obviously, we both understand the importance of USR to all of that, because guarantee it, the business will cease for a lot of people if USR doesn't continue to be successful.
Right.
So that's why I've always made it. You make it a priority. I've always made it a priority. Been on the board for all these years, not because I was bored, but because I know if we don't, it's going to be a problem. But I said the same thing about the NRA. And that's a whole other topic. But the point is, somebody has to advocate for the things that we're guaranteed the freedom to do. And that's what USR does for us.
Yeah. And I think, even just keeping it in the dialogue, keeping it front of mind of people is important, because there are periods where everything seems pretty calm there's even full years sometimes where, there's really no,
where it seems quiet.
Everything seems all right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's almost,
well,
it's not scarier,
back
but
to the point.
Yeah.
Complacency is the problem. It will always be the problem, because they're a freedom we've got, but we have to continue to fight for it. So we will continue to do so, and we'll continue to have fun at auctions.
Yes.
Not this weekend in Dallas, but we will in Timber.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing that. Yeah, I guess the last thing I want to ask before we get out of here. What are some areas that need to be vita-bugged, so to speak, of our industry from any aspect, as far as something that's seen as like a convention that can be taken to the next level that nobody is putting the proper effort into?
Ooh, that's not a me thing. I don't know that. I never see the next big reptile coming. I never see that.
You just want to feed it.
Well, I do, but at the end of the day, I still feel like I'm not qualified to speak into that kind of thing. I keep animals, and but I can't. Look, we can hypo this and that, and I don't even know what's going on half the time. But my point is, I don't know that, other than just how we do our business, in the attitude we take with it, the honesty, the respectability.
Sure.
That's what will always matter, regardless what the next big thing is, because there's always another next big thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I guess as we wind down, what's the collection looking like over there? What are some of the animals that are in the reptile room?
Well, we have a single Galapagos tortoise that was a gift to us from Wayne Hill.
All right.
And her name is Wayne Hilda.
Perfect.
We keep a lot of Gidgee skinks. We keep a lot of pancake tortoises. We've got some star tortoises. Got a lot of skinks, blue tongues. We don't have any pink tongue right now. We keep several Shinosaurs. We produce several Shinosaurs
Okay.
accidentally each year.
Yeah, those are beautiful.
Yeah, but that's kind of our collection.
Okay.
I mean, our
Nice.
keepers would go, well, you left out this and that. I don't know. There's a bunch of them in there is all I know.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, Todd, for anybody who wants to check out Timberline, what are the best ways for them to do that?
Timberlinefisheries.com. The reason it's still called Timberline Fisheries because that's what we were incorporated at back in the 70s. Timberlinefresh.com will do the same thing. I mean, you'd see us at reptile shows. Check us out online. Ask us questions. When we go to reptile shows, our purpose there is to help people better understand how to more feed their animals in a well-rounded diet. So when we're there, that's why we give bugs away at the shows, because we want to send you home with what you need. But we're really there to talk with you about taking care of your animals. That's why we always have so many care sheets, because we want people to understand, because we're with them forever. The source of their reptile is with them that one day, but we're there all the time. So we want to help them be better at what they do. And if we're going to be there, I would rather spend our time educating people than trying to sell them something. So that's why we kind of do the shows the way we do.
You know, it's always front and center. It's your mainstay at reptile shows. It's always one of my favorite booths to see. And I think you just
appreciate that.
To me, it looks like a booth you would see at some, I mean this in a good way, like some like kind of, corporate trade show. Like, you're kind of, that influence is kind of raising all of us up around it. Like we should all aspire to that level of professionalism in our show displays.
I appreciate that. It all goes back to where I said from the very beginning, we're a commodity. We're sugar, salt, pepper, but it doesn't mean we have to approach it in a slighted way. So we try to do everything we do that projects a professional, because we are a professional company that just happen to be involved in a very fun area of the world.
Yes, no question. Yeah, I think that's a good way to leave it off of it. Just, this is fun, and hopefully everybody can keep that mentality no matter what is happening in their lives, no matter what. Have this reptile thing be fun for you. If it's not,
I hope so.
It's probably a problem, but if it can be, man, it makes your life so much better.
I fully agree.
All right. Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon. It meant the world to me, and I absolutely love the conversation. So thank you very much. And thank you to everybody for tuning into the episode. Catch you all back here next week for a new show.